Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, as we always do, we're broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And if you are looking for a bank that's, I think, big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them as a small, medium-sized business, but they're small enough to do it in a personal way. If you want that combination, then that's the combination I have found personally at Renaissance Bank. So if you are located in and around the Southeast United States, go to renaissancebank.com and find one of their local offices and engage with them. And I think you'll be glad you did. By the way, they answer their own phone. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. Speaking of bankers, I want to welcome Phillip Williams. Phillip is with P&P Business Solutions. Actually, ex-banker.
That's right, recovering banker.
That's right. You're in therapy right now,
I'm
right?
still in therapy.
Okay, got it. Phillip, let's give everyone an introduction to you and your work. How are you serving folks out there?
Well, John, first of all, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be on your show today. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
P&P Business Solutions was launched. It'll be 7 years in November. It's hard to believe.
Congratulations.
Thank you. P&P stands for Passion and Prosperity. So most business owners that I've met over my 30-plus years in banking and now 7 years as a consultant are very passionate about what they do. We'll talk a little bit about that passion later when it comes to selling their business. Mm-hmm. But with that passion, they're not always prosperous. And the reason, quite simply, is they started their business because they liked they're passionate about a product or service, but not necessarily the finances. The finances were sort of a secondhand thing that goes along with it that unfortunately you have to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And many business owners don't. And so the prosperity aspect of their business is not always there. So what I try to do is come in and work as a coach with my business owners to help them understand how to turn their passion into prosperity. So hence P&P Business Solutions.
I love that. Yeah, you're right. I mean, people get into business and you can't get into business without some passion, right? About something.
Absolutely.
But bringing it all down to the bottom line is a whole other matter together, right?
An accountant many, many years ago in my early stage of banking told me something that an entrepreneur, the definition was someone who doesn't know when they're taking a risk.
Yep.
So they just go blindly at it, and because they don't, in their mind, they can get it done, and they're going to do it.
Oh my, that's a knowing laugh on my part. Thank you for that. I love that. Talk about, Phillip, why your banking experience is so important in the work you're doing now. I mean, what that brings to the table on behalf of your clients.
Well, it goes back to risk. As I said earlier, most entrepreneurs don't really know when it's a risky venture and when it is and when it is not. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, as a banker from the old days, we could tell 10 ways why something won't work because that's just how we were hardwired. And so that made a successful banker in that you were very, very risk adverse. So the two of those worlds clash, especially in today's world when most bankers are really more from the sales environment and less on the decision-making and the credit analysis world of things. So as a business owner, you walk into your bank and you think you're ready to expand your business. You give them some financial statements. The balance sheet may not balance. And so the banker looks at that particular opportunity and says, thank you, no thanks, I can't help you. So what I try to bridge that gap is helping my business owners understand what they need to do from a business perspective to make their business look more attractive. So therefore, bankers will be beating a path to their doorway to loan them money. Mm-hmm. That also plays hand in hand with when you sell your business. Mm-hmm. When you sell your business, you want to be able to present those financial statements to the potential buyer, where that buyer goes, wow, I need to buy this business because it is very successful based on these financial statements. So again, I look at it as they kind of go hand in hand. Good financial record keeping and understanding how you make money is paramount in running a successful business.
And what business owners may not realize is that often that purchase of their business needs to be financed, right? So they have to show cash flow that a banker, back to your point, can look at and say, hey, I can finance that.
Bingo. And that is so critical because, again, once that a buyer takes those financials to their local bank, whomever that may be, hopefully it's Renaissance, since we're here in Renaissance Bank today, and they will be able to understand those financials and know that this business makes sense. They'll be able to see and track all the expenses and see the true cash flow, and that's critical.
Well, and banks are different, right? So, and that's where you come in, speaking of your experience. I mean, banks have different risk parameters. They have different skill sets when it comes to the type of business it is. And that's not apparent to the typical business owner looking at it from the outside, right?
Absolutely. And many times the mistake that business owners make is they think that getting a business loan is much like getting a mortgage loan as a consumer. And it's totally different. There's nothing even similar about the two. And likewise, your local community bank will probably understand or take the time to understand any nuances in your business that may be slightly different. They'll look at the intangibles. They'll look at, especially if it's a local community bank, that understand the various players and who the business owner was before, or maybe who's buying the business. So those are all important facts, and you mentioned it earlier in your introduction. But a bank such as Renaissance Bank, and what I would call a super community bank, they still are small enough to know their individual business owners. Whereas the mega banks, and they're all fantastic banks, and publicly traded, doing well. And if you're a mega company, 100 million, 200 million in sales and greater, then that's probably where would be best suited for you.
Right.
But for the small business owner, which I would categorize 3 million to 30 million in revenues on an annual basis, you're much better suited with the smaller banks.
Phil, let's talk a little bit about timing and where we are in the cycle of business sales and business purchases, for that matter. I mean, when is it a good time to be looking at selling my business? What are the particulars of the current environment that I need to think about?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. So after, who would have thought during a pandemic that the mergers and acquisitions, M&A market would have just exploded? But that's exactly what happened. In 2020, 2021, the M&A market has gone crazy, a large part, in fact, due to the baby boomer generation who are aging out. I don't know the statistic off my top of my head right now, but thousands of people are turning 65 every day from the baby boomer generation. Many of those are business owners. So 2020, I think a lot of people started rethinking, do they really want to continue to do this? They had to adapt and change the way that they may have done business, that with a lot of businesses having to close, et cetera. So I think a lot of people's, antenna went up and says, I think now's the time to sell. And so it seemed to have really exploded during 2020 and shortly after. So as a result, there were other people who were strategic buyers that were looking to expand into various territories or various product lines, et cetera. So they looked at it as this is a ripe time to start, approaching those business owners. So being prepared to sell your business is so important. And that's making sure that your financials are all tidied up, et cetera. Because as you know, in the negotiation point of any type of transaction that goes on, there's always give and take. And so somebody's always looking to nitpick. And so I won't give you this because, it's like trying to sell your car. You got a scratch on the left fender here. I'll knock $500 off.
Right.
Well, the same thing's true for businesses. If you have maybe put something in that was irregular on your financial statement, they may question that and say, well, we're not going to consider that part of income. And the way 99% of all businesses are sold, it's a multiple of EBITDA. And so anything they can do to ding that multiple downward, then it gets them a better buy. So as a business owner, you want to make sure you've got all those covered and well documented.
When you say tidy up financials, let's put up some examples around that for business owners, Philip. And, because I think for most business owners, I suspect what they're thinking is, well, I just need to make sure the balance sheet actually balances and there's actually income in the income statement, right?
That's true. So true. So it's a mindset change that a business owner must take because, again, when you open your business, you were passionate about what you did, and then you probably visited your local CPA. Mm-hmm. He or she prepared your tax returns, and your goal was to pay as little taxes as possible.
And that's what your CPA is trying to get to, right? I mean, your advisor is really is got that mindset as well, so it reinforces the issue, right?
It's it's a double whammy because I've heard of CPAs that were fired by their clients because they had to pay too much taxes.
Right. Yep.
And then when you think about that, that's just kind of silly because there's a reward for your efforts, and unfortunately, you got to pay your fair share to Uncle Sam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, what we as Americans, I mean, I think it's really across the board. We look to ways to reduce our net income, so that in turn reduces our tax liability. We buy equipment unnecessarily in the fourth quarter, so it will reduce your. You can take the 179 depreciation write off.
Right.
And that's all well and good as long as you're running that lifestyle business. But if you ever want to build something that you're going to sell and be proud of, then you switch from being a lifestyle person to an enterprise person. Think of it as many great Atlanta companies such as Home Depot or Coca-Cola. They're not sitting around their boardroom in the fourth quarter trying to figure out what equipment they're going to buy so they can show less profit for their shareholders.
Yeah.
I mean, they would be killed in the stock market.
Right.
So you've got to think about your business as a publicly traded company. That's the best way I can think of it. And when you get to that point, if you truly want to sell your business and you want to build something to sell, then you need to totally rethink the way your strategy.
Folks, we're here chatting with Phillip Williams. Phillip is with P&P Business Solutions, his own practice. Phillip, let's talk about this lifestyle versus enterprise business. Do you think that there's confusion on that with some business owners, whether they have a lifestyle business or not, or maybe they think they've got an enterprise business, but their business is really more lifestyle?
That's a great point. And that's exactly, I think it just kind of morphs over time. So you're starting your business, you've hired your CPA who's doing your taxes, and now you've got this game that's going, which is, I don't want to pay Uncle Sam.
Right.
And, you may have, as most business owners, they worked in a private industry before, were a W-2 employee, and they realize that they may be making less money, but they're actually putting more money in their pocket because they're not having to pay all the taxes and withholdings that you do as a W-2 employee. Mm-hmm. So it becomes kind of a game, I think, or it kind of morphs into that, in that you're putting more money in your pocket, and hey, that's a good thing. I can, buy that beach house or that boat or fancy sports car or whatever the case may be. And then you find out as your children get older, you can either put them on the payroll, or you can run their cars through it as a company car, or their phones as company cell phones, and so on and so forth. And maybe the husband or wife comes into the business, once a month or once a week, and in turn they get a full salary. So you're paying, again, less taxes, bottom line. So all is good. So accidentally, I think over time, we become this lifestyle type business.
And is that once you get to that point, is there no return, or can you help? If I'm a business owner in that position and I want to get my business ready to sell, can you help me take care of all these items that I need to untangle out of my financials?
The secret sauce. So yes, the answer is yes and yes. And it takes a little while to sometimes untangle the weave. It could take 3 to 5 years in order to reorder the business, to get assets placed properly where they should be placed, because any savvy buyer that's coming in to look at the business are going to see right away what you've done, and they're not going to give you credit for that. They're going to try to ding you on your sales price. So, yeah, very important.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the particular environment we find ourselves as it relates to the effect of inflation, interest rates, tax considerations and the where the IRS is when it comes to potentially coming after small businesses, et cetera?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So in a very real situation, so here we are sitting in March of 2022, just a few short months ago. Mm-hmm. Prime rate was 3.5%. As of today, prior to the Fed meeting, which is happening today and tomorrow, we're at 5.5%. That's a 200 basis points increase. Where's this going? Well, if we're thinking that the Fed's going to go 75 basis points, which will put us at 6.25% for prime rate. So 6.25% rate, and we were 3.5% just back in March. I mean, that's a huge difference in our lending environment.
Right.
That's a huge cost difference. So let's just take $1 million loan. That's up from $35,000 in interest per year to $62,000 to where we are right now, where we could be. That's $5,208 a month. That's huge, but unfortunately it gets worse. So this goes back to the banker's mind that I was telling you about, where I try to play interference between the banks and my clients. So banks have what they call an acid test, or they want to go in and check the rate to see, can you, as a client, handle the cash flow? Does your company have the ability to cash flow this loan based on what they call a shock test? So in many times, a bank will take 300 more basis points and add on to the current rate to find out if you would qualify for this particular loan. And if the answer is no, then you won't be able to survive in a rising rate environment. And that's exactly where we find ourselves right now. I'm not sure where the end is going to be, candidly, with the runaway inflation that we have and with the looming recession, which we're in a recession, whether we call it that or not, but we're definitely flat in a recession right now. So as a business owner, you're trying to sell your business. So, Mary or Joe comes up, they want to buy it. So whatever the price you finally agree upon, they then go to their bank, and typically most people will finance a business via the SBA, and it's called a Product 7A loan. Most SBA loans are prime plus 2.5 to prime plus 2.75. So given if the rate increase goes to 6.25, then that's a 9% rate. That's huge.
Yeah.
Then your bank is going to add another 300 basis points to that, or take it to 12%. And can you cash flow a 12% note at whatever amount that the business is being sold for? And it becomes very, very difficult. So it's totally going to change the dynamics of what we've been looking at and what we've been so accustomed to as a country, because our rates have been so low for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, when I moved to Atlanta.
Oh no, we're going to get the age and
now
season.
We'll see how old we are.
Yeah, that's right.
So when I came to Atlanta and we built our first house in 1990, we were thrilled to get a 9.75 rate at the time because it was below 10%.
Right.
And rates, in the 81 were, 18, 19%.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So are we going back to there? I don't know, but I will tell you that it's definitely going to hamper the business buying and business financing. So it's going to be interesting times ahead, I'm afraid.
It's no consolation. Prime was 21 in 81.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's no consolation to people that, oh, well, Prime was 21 in 81. I mean, when it's, 9 or 10% and you're used to 3 or 4%, right?
Exactly.
That's a problem.
And it's been that way. Literally, we have been sub 7% for over 20 years, I believe.
Right.
And I'm sure someone's Googling me right now to verify that, but I'm almost positive that 7's probably been the high over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like what I should do in my business is I need to do my own shock test, or I need to hire Phillip to help me do that with my financials.
Absolutely. So I come in typically on an early engagement, and basically I do a front-end analysis of your business. So I have a software program that shows you how you compare to your other business in your particular SIC code or NAICS code.
Right.
So basically you will know, because business owners don't always tell the truth when they get in the country club environment or they're talking and they sell that their business sold for X multiples over and so on and so forth, and they're doing fantastic. I've never walked into a cocktail party and somebody told me that they were in debt up to their eyeballs and could somebody help me, please? If you remember that old commercial.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, go ahead.
So in any event, my front-end analysis helps level the playing field, and it shows you in real time how your business compares to other like businesses, so you can grade your own self that you're doing great, or, boy, I need some help. And so if you need help, then that's what I try to come in and work with you on to get you back to that point that will give you the most bang for your buck when you go to market.
Speaking of being at a point where we're not used to in this generation is inflation. Given the way supply chain's working and then the cost of goods sold continues to, really eat at small and medium-sized businesses, in terms of selling your business, what do you need to be able to show in terms of your ability to manage inflation?
Oh, great question. So it's your expertise. And if you all that are listening don't realize it, but one of John's great things that he does is help people concentrate on their pricing and figuring out, do they need to do a price increase and what is your actual price? So many business owners don't know that. And that's key in a rising inflationary environment, that you may need to raise your price.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that. I didn't bring that up so you could give me a commercial, but I was thinking more. Pricing is one of those factors, but also it's your suppliers, right? It's your ability to manage your vendors and to be able to continue operations unimpeded, right?
Absolutely. So earlier this year, I had a second generation manufacturing company. And they had done quite well by themselves, but they found that because of a lot of their raw materials were petroleum-based, et cetera, they were having difficulty getting their particular supplies. So for the first time, this company had to get a line of credit from their local bank. And the whole purpose of that was to really ensure that they could get the materials ahead of time to avoid any supply chain issues. But this is a very delicate tightrope that you got to walk, because if you just continue, I use rubber gloves as an example. You remember you couldn't get rubber gloves several months ago, but now they're plentiful. So if you stocked up on them at a certain price, then you're stuck with this huge amount of inventory, which is it's a use of cash, which can be very, very critical for a business who needs that cash, and now it's stuck in a warehouse somewhere with just loads of particular raw goods, et cetera. So we can't overreact as business owners, and I try to temper that with my clients and show them, what the current inventory turns should be, what it looks like in the normalized situation. But don't go absolutely crazy out there and just buy up and try to corner the market on a particular, because it could then hurt you long term, because you're stuck with all this inventory. And if it's got a certain shelf life, then you're going to have to write it off, and so that's ultimately going to be a loss. So it's delicate right now, and it's a very interesting time.
Yeah. Phillip, do you work with businesses that maybe they don't know what they want to do in terms of selling? In terms of maybe buying other businesses, do you work with them just as a matter of giving a strategic overview, a strategic plan, a look ahead as to what their options are?
Absolutely, because again, nobody's business may be for sale, but suddenly you get that call, you get that announcement or an email that says, "Hey, I want to buy your business." So the business owner, one, doesn't know what they would do if they sold their business. They have no idea possibly what their business would be worth. They may think it's some huge amount, and in reality, it can be much, much less. And so then there becomes, it's like that. I'm sure we all get these "we buy ugly house" cards. I get a dozen of, I must have an ugly house. I don't know. But I get these cards all the time of somebody wanting to buy my business.
Right.
And in reality, it is a fraction of really what your home is worth. And nobody does a cold call that wants to give you a great price. They are bottom feeders, is what I call. And so business owners need to be aware of that, and don't go down that particular primrose path with someone who may not be willing to give you what your business is worth. So it's important to have a current business valuation if you're even thinking about it in the next 5 years. And then that'll tell you what the value would be as of today. But as we all know, businesses are sold on future cash flows, not past cash flows.
Right.
So that's where you need this village of people to help you understand. And then it goes back to, do you have your own personal financial advisor? So, I mean, are you going to be able to live on what your business will provide at a sale, less capital gains, less all the other taxes you pay, less the commissions, et cetera? And most folks are not sure. So it even goes back to your personal advisor. So there's so many people that are involved, a good M&A attorney, your insurance person. If you are under 65, what's your medical cost going to be at that point in time? So there's lots and lots and lots of information that you need to make sure that you have put together. And so what I do is a certified exit planning advisor. It's a CEPA designation, and it helps be the quarterback to bring all those people together to help you successfully migrate from a business owner to a retiree sitting on the beach somewhere.
So, Phillip, I've got a question around the type of industries that you cover. Do you have any particular preference or expertise in that area, or are you a good old generalist when it comes to the work you do?
I think the term is agnostic. I
like
am
that.
Business agnostic. As a banker from 1985 to 2015, I really called on all types of businesses. I did a lot of nonprofit lending, manufacturing company, professionals, executives, and so I've pretty much built my practice on the same type of businesses. I've helped. I'm right now in the process of helping a church. And if it all goes well as planned, I'll save them about $18,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
So, and again, following the 2020 pandemic, church attendance is pretty much down, giving is down. And so churches and synagogues have been impacted by the pandemic.
Significantly so. Yeah, that's great work. So maybe it would be great in terms of giving folks a sense of your work, if you could give us a success story, one that you're particularly proud of that illustrates the great work that you do.
So I was contacted almost a year ago. It was a second-generation business owner. He was referred to me by another client that I had helped. And his situation was he was working with one of the biggest banks in the country. He was wanting to expand his business, but the banker said no. And what is it turned out to be, this particular business owner inherited his father's business, and he was an accountant. So he really knew his financials. But even better, he was a former IRS agent. So someone who understood the tax code to the nth degree, this person really did. And so when they bought the business or inherited it from the father, he structured it as such to be tax adverse, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And he set up multiple companies. There was, I think, at least 4 different companies that was part of this, including a real estate holding company, et cetera. But the bankers' heads just exploded when they looked at it because they couldn't understand the cash flow.
Right.
There was so many different moving parts. So I took the time with him, explain what had happened, that he was really a good business and that it was an attractive business, and I'm sure that I could find a bank that would love him and help him grow, because his ultimate goal was to open other locations. He had expanded next door to his particular business, had bought the property, had financed it himself, so did not need a bank loan. But now was just looking to, structure the business, because he's very young, to grow it. And so that's what we set about doing. So after several weeks of going through all the financials and asking him a ton of questions and understanding the cash flow, I put together a fairly simplistic overview. I think of what is called a white paper in this particular industry, and shopped it with various banks. Again, using the medium-sized to local community banks in this particular community. And we had a lot of interest. So the good news was that we had 3 banks vying for his business, where his mega bank said, no, thank you. And ultimately we closed it last week. So it was a good news story.
Oh, wow.
He is, I call it, what I do is arranging marriage. And I try to find a banker in a bank that understands a particular industry, because as many people may or may not know, there's certain banks that like certain industries and others like other industries.
Right.
So having come out of the banking industry, my goal is to know these particular banks and understand what they like, and then try to present opportunities for them to help these clients out. So I'm thankful that this one closed last week, and we'll move on to the next one.
I love it. Phillip Williams, folks. P&P Business Solutions is his practice. Phillip, this has been great. I can't imagine there aren't some folks that want to be in touch. So let's tell them how they can do that.
That's easy. You can go to pnpbusinesssolutions.com. That's the best way to catch me. If you'd like to call me, it's 404-312-4663, because like John says, I actually answer my phone.
I love that.
So thank you so much, John. I really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you, but also to hopefully help some business owners out there that may be struggling or looking for a new direction.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been fun, and I've known Phillip a long time. He's a great guy and knowledgeable guy. It helps when those both come in the same package. So thank you, Phillip. You're terrific.
You're too kind. Thank you, John.
I appreciate you. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder as we wrap up the show here. If you're looking for a better experience for your team building exercise for your company, if you're tired of thinking about activities that might involve broken bones or mosquito bites, well, I've got an idea. A&S Culinary Concepts, yes, they're a corporate catering operation. They do great work in that regard. I know myself, so check them out on that. But if you're a business owner looking for a great team building activity, give Andrew Traub a call over there. He's the executive chef and owner of A&S Culinary Concepts in Johns Creek. His number is 678-336-9196. And what he does is plan an event where your team can come in, prepare the meal with his direction. You eat it together. It's just a lot of fun. So, give him a call or go to asculinaryconcepts.com, and I think you'll be glad you did. And, folks, we are delighted to report, if you didn't hear the show, that we've recently celebrated 500 episodes of North Fulton Business Radio. That's a great milestone for us, and we've only gotten to that point because of your support. So if you could continue to support us, we'd be most grateful, because that's what makes it flow for us. But here's the other thing, and I'm not shy of asking about this. If you have heard something here that makes you want to share the show, please do, because our purpose is to highlight great business leaders, owners, and community leaders like Phillip who do great work, and that work deserves to be found and celebrated and shared. So if you could help us help them by sharing the show, we'd greatly appreciate it. So for my guest, Phillip Williams, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.